Politics, big day here in Kentucky, the most expensive primary race ever in America. Ed Gallrein has clinched the GOP nomination for Kentucky's 4th congressional district.
Yeah, the President Trump-backed candidate was an easy winner tonight over incumbent Thomas Massie, who was seeking his 8th term. So here you go. You see the numbers here on your screen. Gallrein with basically a double-digit margin of victory. WLWT News 5's Aaron Thomas, live for us in Covington, where Gallrein supporters are celebrating a big win tonight. Hi, Aaron.
Hey there, Cherie. Yeah, so Ed Gallrein's watch party took place behind me in downtown Covington. I can tell you, but at the moment he walked in, he was feeling pretty confident. He spoke amongst his dozens of supporters, telling him that he felt good about what he was walking into. He also had that extra boost from President Trump, who endorsed him. Giving you a little bit of background, he's a former Navy SEAL and Army Ranger and Kentucky farmer who managed to hold a lead throughout the night. Cheers erupted from the crowd when the race was called in his favor around 8 tonight. Now, during a brief 5-minute speech, he first thanked President Trump for his support, then his supporters and the people who were fundamental in his upbringing. He also looked ahead to November's election, saying he'll lean into his experience in the military and willingness to serve the best interest of Americans.
Now my focus is on advancing the president's and the party's agenda to put America first and Kentucky always. But for the same reason I entered as a Navy SEAL officer in 1983, because I had the audacity to think I could make a difference, and I did. I will serve this district, my party, and my nation with that same audacity to make a difference for them, their families, our district, our party, and our nation. God bless America. Thank y'all. Thank y'all for coming tonight.
And of course, this is a pretty big race that we're talking about. Gallrein is looking to take the place of Thomas Massie, who held this seat as a Republican for 7 terms. He'll be facing off against the Democratic challenger, Melissa Strange, in November. Reporting live in Covington, Aaron Thomas, WLWT. News 5.
All right, Aaron, thanks so much for that report from Covington. Speaking of Thomas Massie, just after about 8 o'clock tonight, Massie talked with his supporters, saying he called Ed Gallrein to concede.
And WLWT News 5's Todd Dykes live right now in Boone County with Massie's message and a political goodbye after 14 years, Todd, as a U.S. representative.
Yeah, well, the outcome was not what Thomas Massie had hoped for tonight. He says he's feeling hopeful because his campaign brought out a lot of young voters. And a step out of the way, he's just still in the room, as best I can tell, several hours after the polls closed. So a lot of energy here. People still together. They are still discussing the outcome of this race. During his speech that lasted for about 30 minutes, Massie thanked his team and the tens of thousands of grassroots donors who helped him battle a very public pressure campaign waged by President Trump. Massie said he's proud of running what he called a clean race while criticizing things like the president's ballroom, excessive spending, even calls to reinstate the draft. Massie said the race he ran wasn't against Ed Gallrein or President Trump. He said it was for what his supporters believe in, like limited government when it comes to personal decisions. Supporters cheered Massie every step of the way, despite the losing effort.
I didn't mean to do this. It started out as an election and it turned into a movement. I mean, we stirred up something. There is a yearning in this country for somebody who will vote for principles over party. Why did it converge on one of 435 congressional seats right here in Kentucky? What was God's purpose? What is he showing us tonight? We're just getting started. I like that.
And you could tell a lot of energy in this room. Massie blasted his colleagues in D.C. who always vote with the president, comparing it to having a king. He then added, quote, "We have a republic when lawmakers follow the Constitution." For now, reporting live here in Hebron, Todd Dykes, WLWT News 5.
And Todd, some supporters hanging with you right now. We heard a lot of 2028 chants tonight, which can mean a whole lot of things, as we know. But what did Thomas Massie think about all of that?
Yeah, there was another round of 2028 chants just about 10 minutes ago. At one point, he jokingly said, "Oh, what, you mean another congressional run?" When the chants of 2028 kept going, Massey told his supporters they'd made a compelling case, alluding to a presidential run. He ended his speech by saying he'll talk about that another day. Mike?
The unflappable Todd Dykes, live for us tonight. Great job tonight, Todd. Thank you so much. They're still enthusiastic,
yeah, I was gonna say,
despite the loss tonight.
You don't usually see that after somebody loses. All right. So in November, it is going to be the Republican Gallrein against some strange competition.
As in Melissa Strange, who will be the Democrat in that fight for a U.S. congressional seat. Strange over Brewer in a bluegrass blowout, winning by more than 45 points. WLWT News 5's Sean McKinnon is live in Northern Kentucky with more. Hi, Sean.
Hey, Mike, Cherie. Melissa Strange actually thinks her odds are better against Ed Gallrein, saying Thomas Massie supporters will be disenchanted by the Trump-backed candidate. She hopes those voters will see past the letter D next to her name on the ballot this fall. Strange says she's a part of a group of candidates trying to fix what they say is broken in government. She's pledged to support term limits, a ban on congressional stock trading, overturning the Supreme Court decision allowing corporate money in politics, and stopping members of Congress from immediately becoming lobbyists when they leave. She knows Kentucky is a conservative state, but hopes she'll be able to pull independents who aren't happy with the Trump-endorsed candidate in Gallrein. Strange speaking only with WLWT tonight.
I think if people get to know me, or at least know anything about me, I think they'll see that I'm really quite reasonable, if you will. I think also the fact that I'm focused not just on the issues, but I'm also really heavily focused on fixing what's broken in government. Those are things that really resonate with people across the spectrum.
It's been more than 20 years since Kentucky's 4th congressional district was held by a Democrat. Melissa Strange hopes to change that. Reporting live, Sean McKinnon, WLWT News 5.
All right, pretty backdrop tonight after a stormy night. Sean McKinnon live for us. Thank you. Well, obviously the Trump effect was a major factor in tonight's Kentucky U.S. Senate race as well. 12 Republicans trying to take U.S. Senator Mitch McConnell's seat when he leaves.
But Republican candidate Andy Barr, who was backed by the president, won early against his Republican challenger, Daniel Cameron. Here's a look at the numbers for you. Tonight, Barr not even tested, winning by about a 30-point margin. Our Chris Jacobs was there for Barr's acceptance speech tonight. Hi, Chris.
Hey guys, yeah, I don't think Andy Barr could have expected tonight to have gone any better. An hour after the polls closed, the race was called, and Andy Barr came out on top. Go ahead and take a look at this. This is Barr coming out to the stage not long after securing that victory. You can see the crowd there after the win gathering also to celebrate. Now, Barr was the favorite going into the day, but I'm not sure quite how many people expected this to be as decisive as it was. Barr had the winning message clearly, but he also had that winning endorsement that we've been talking about. President Trump gave his support at the beginning of the month, which even became a makeshift slogan on Barr's campaign poster. And that support goes a long way in Kentucky, where the president received more than 60% of the vote in each of the last 3 presidential elections. Tonight, Barr spoke about what this victory means going forward.
I have work to do. Just as I said when I declared my candidacy in the primary, I will fight for our way of life, for our farms, our factories, our horse industry, our bourbon, for coal, for low taxes, for high growth, for safe towns, safe cities, civility, respect, and fairness to all.
Yeah, and we spoke with Barr shortly after giving that victory speech. He says he spoke with his opponent, Daniel Cameron, who called to congratulate him. But he says right now he's turning his attention to November, where he's expecting an even tougher fight. Reporting live in Lexington, Chris Jacobs, WLWT News 5.
All right, Chris Jacobs, thanks so much. And by the way, the former Attorney General for Kentucky, Daniel Cameron, defeated, as Chris was saying there, very early tonight.
A different election, same result. WLWT News 5's Brian Hamrick has more on his disappointing loss tonight.
Well, it was an early evening for Daniel Cameron. The race called just after 7 o'clock this evening. It was the first thing he told his supporters here in LaGrange. It was, Not the way we wanted it to work out, but it did. I caught up with him shortly after his concession speech.
Well, it's obviously, we were disappointed. Thought that we had a really strong chance to win and didn't turn out that way. But in life, nothing's linear. There are peaks and valleys and challenges that exist, and you just keep going.
Cameron said he did call Andy Barr. They talked a bit. He said that he congratulated him and said he would do whatever he could to support him in the general election. Brian Hemrick, WLWT News 5.
So Andy Barr's opponent in the general election come November will be the Democrat Charles Booker.
Yeah, he takes out Marine veteran Amy McGrath by double digits tonight. There are the numbers for you. WLWT News 5's Rachel Whalen was there for Booker's victory speech. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Mike and Cherie. At times, the race felt very tight, but eventually Booker pulled away, sparking huge applause here from his supporters in Louisville. Booker first gained national attention during his 2020 Senate campaign when he lost to the Democratic primary to Amy McGrath, but built a grassroots following across Kentucky. The former Louisville state representative gained ground in the Democratic Party in the years to follow. His current campaign focuses on issues impacting working families, including health care, higher wages, and affordability. After his win tonight, I asked Booker why he believes he was able to come out on top this time around.
What's powerful about this race is that I'm the same. My message is the same. My platform is the same. People of Kentucky are standing with me because they know where I've stood. But everything else around us has changed. We're seeing an economy that is upside down. Tariffs are jacking up costs. Trump's wars are putting our loved ones in harm's way and making life more unaffordable. People are hurting, and they're looking for leaders that will meet the moment, that will deliver for them. And they see in me a steadfast voice that's been on the front line with them.
Booker is now focusing on Republican Andy Barr for the November race for a chance to take over Mitch McConnell's Senate seat. I'm reporting in Louisville, Rachel Whalen, WLWT News 5.
Rachel, Wendell Ford was the last Democrat in 1999 to serve as a U.S. Senator in that state. It's an uphill battle. Obviously, Donald Trump won that state by more than 30 points. Does he believe he's got a shot here?
He does. Booker said he knows it will be an uphill battle, but he has a lot of hope tonight. He thinks he will be able to speak to those voters across the aisle. Certainly tonight's win, a major momentum shift for his campaign after losing to Amy McGrath back in 2020.
All right. Thanks for your coverage. Good job. Rachel Whalen live from the Louisville area tonight. Really appreciate that. So Amy McGrath, who ran and lost against U.S. Senator McConnell back in 2020, she was hoping for redemption.
Yeah, she's never going to get that chance, though, in November. WLWT News 5's Ashley Kirkland spent the night in Frankfort tonight with the disappointing loss again for McGrath.
Well, this certainly was not the outcome McGrath had hoped for tonight. 6 years after she first launched her unsuccessful bid for Kentucky's U.S. Senate seat in 2020, McGrath was handed another disappointing blow tonight in the primary. McGrath, the Northern Kentucky native and Marine veteran, ran her campaign focused on some key kitchen table issues that are impacting Americans right now, promising to help bring down the prices of food and gas, fighting for affordable health care, and also advocating on behalf of current service members in the wake of the war with Iran. McGrath's campaign sent us a statement saying, in part, "It has been one of the greatest honors of my life to travel across Kentucky, listen to people's stories, and stand alongside so many thoughtful, compassionate, and determined Kentuckians who care deeply about the future of this Commonwealth. I want to congratulate Charles Booker and wish him success in the important work ahead. I know our shared values surrounding fairness, opportunity, dignity, and service will unite us all as we fight for this open seat in November." And McGrath also saying that her time in service to the people of Kentucky does not end tonight. Here in Frankfort, Ashley Kirkland, WLWT News 5.
All right, so you're seeing them here at the bottom of your screen. There were many, many more races tonight in Kentucky. For all of those results and the latest numbers, go to our website, WLWT.com, or download our mobile app.